You do not hear it first, you see it. White walls, clean floors, glass that reflects more sky than ground. The space feels quiet, but not empty. Everything looks finished, polished, ready to move. The room smells new, or at least expensive. Seats are wide and soft. They face forward, but there is no stage, no crowd, no waiting. This place is not built for many people. It is built for a few. Light comes in easily. It moves across leather, metal, and smooth surfaces. Nothing blocks it, nothing interrupts it. The windows are large and the view feels far away. The ground already feels distant, even before anything lifts off. There are no signs asking for attention, no messages on the walls, no promises written down. Everything here assumes agreement. You are meant to feel calm. You are meant to feel impressed. You are meant to feel like this makes sense. Time feels different in this space. There is no rush, but there is direction. Everything points forward. Movement is expected. Waiting feels temporary. Staying feels unlikely. You notice how quiet it is. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that feels protected. Sound does not echo. Nothing rattles. Even silence feels designed. There are small details meant to reassure. Soft materials, perfect spacing, nothing sharp, nothing uncomfortable. This is not a place for questions. It is a place for arrival and departure. You imagine who sits here. Not faces, just posture, relaxed, confident, unbothered. People who do not look around much because they already know where they are going. This room does not explain itself. It does not need to. It feels like the result of many decisions made somewhere else. Decisions that worked. Nothing in the room tells you how it was paid for. Nothing mentions effort. Nothing suggests cost. The space feels earned, but not by you. It feels distant from crowds, distant from noise, distant from weight. And yet it exists because something else happened before this moment. You stand still for a second longer than needed. The room does not ask anything from you. It only waits to move. Something about this space feels clean on the surface, calm, controlled. But Carl Jung would not stay with the surface for long. He would look at what this room helps people not feel. This place carries desire quietly, not loud want, not hunger, a softer kind. The wish to rise above noise, the wish to be separate, the wish to feel chosen without having to say it out loud. Jung believed people hide parts of themselves not because they are bad, but because they feel unsafe to show. In this room, what hides is not fear, it is longing. The desire to escape weight, to leave effort behind, to move above crowds without guilt. The shadow here is comfortable. It wears soft materials, it smells clean. It does not feel dark, it feels earned. People rarely say they want luxury. They say they want freedom, peace, efficiency, rest. Jung would notice how easily those words slide over desire, how wanting more distance can sound like wanting less trouble. There is also admiration hiding here, not always spoken. Sometimes people feel proud when someone they trust reaches this level. It feels like shared success, like proof that belief works. Jung would notice how people project their own hopes onto someone else's comfort. The shadow does not argue, it agrees. It says, "This makes sense." It says, "One day." It says, "They deserve it." And because the desire feels clean, it stays unseen. No one feels greedy in this room. No one feels dishonest. The shadow stays quiet because it feels justified. Jung would not accuse this space of lying. He would say it helps people forget parts of themselves they don't want to question. The parts that wonder why distance feels so good, why elevation feels safe, why watching someone rise can feel better than rising yourself. This room does not create the shadow, it simply gives it a place to rest. And when the shadow is comfortable, it rarely asks to be seen. At some point, questions about money and comfort turn into questions about fairness. This is where Friedrich Nietzsche would begin to listen more closely, not for anger, not for doubt, but for certainty. People often explain outcomes like this with calm words: hard work, vision, blessing, success. The tone matters. It sounds settled, finished, like the explanation does not need to be touched again. Nietzsche was careful with moral language. He noticed how easily people call something good when it works, how quickly success becomes proof. When something rises high enough, it starts to feel right just because it is there. In this space, morality is quiet. No one is shouting about right or wrong. Instead, people speak about deserving, about reward, about results. The jet is not described as excess, it is described as function, as tool, as efficiency. This kind of morality feels smooth. It removes tension. If the outcome is framed as earned, then no further questions are needed. The story closes itself. Nietzsche would notice how comfort protects belief. When belief leads to visible success, it feels dangerous to question it. Doubt starts to sound like envy. Curiosity starts to sound rude. You would also notice how morality shifts direction. Instead of asking, "Is this good for everyone?" the question becomes, "Does this prove something?" Proof replaces care. Outcome replaces process. There is relief in this. When morality feels clear, responsibility feels lighter. You don't have to trace the path backward, you only have to look at where it ends. Nietzsche did not hate success. He distrusted moral stories that arrive too easily. Stories that feel complete without being examined. Stories that protect power by calling it natural. Here, morality does not command, it reassures. It says, "This is how things work." It says, "This is normal." It says, "There is nothing to see." Nietzsche would not interrupt the room. He would simply note how certainty settles in once belief produces comfort, and how, once settled, it becomes very hard to disturb. This is where Niccolò Machiavelli would stop caring about the story. He would stop listening to reasons, he would watch results. The jet finally becomes visible here, not as an object to admire, but as a fact. It moves faster, it waits for no one, it creates distance without effort. It changes who arrives tired and who arrives rested. Machiavelli believed power is easiest to see when you look at who gains freedom. Not loud freedom, quiet freedom. The kind that removes obstacles instead of fighting them. Belief has done its work before this moment. Trust has already moved through crowds, wallets, time, and loyalty. By the time the jet appears, nothing needs to be asked. The exchange is complete. You would notice how clean the outcome looks. No force, no threats, no demands. People gave willingly. They believed willingly. And now the result moves above traffic, lines, and waiting rooms. Power here does not shout. It hums, it schedules, it departs on time. Machiavelli would also watch who stays grounded, who waits, who adjusts their life around someone else's movement. Distance is not just physical. It changes access, it changes protection. It changes who can leave when things become difficult. The jet is not about speed alone. It is about insulation. Problems arrive later here. Consequences take longer. Discomfort is filtered out. He would not ask if this is fair. That question belongs to another lens. He would ask if it is effective, and clearly it is. Belief has converted itself into advantage. Trust has turned into altitude. What began as shared feeling has become private movement. Machiavelli would note one more thing. When power reaches this level quietly, it rarely needs to defend itself. It looks like success. It feels like inevitability. People point at it and say, "That is what belief can do." And once belief proves it can lift someone this high, it becomes very hard to ask where the lift came from. By now, belief is no longer something people talk about. It is something that has produced results. Napoleon Hill focused his work on this exact moment, the moment when belief stops being an idea and starts becoming evidence. Hill believed belief works when people act on it together, not once, repeatedly. Trust builds momentum. Momentum builds outcomes. In this case, belief gathered attention, money, loyalty, and time, not through force, through agreement. No one was pushed. That matters. People gave because belief felt good, because it felt hopeful, because it felt like being part of something that worked. Belief did not need to threaten, it only needed to promise. The jet is the result of that process. Not framed as luxury, not framed as excess, it is described as efficiency, as protection of time, as focus. Hill would recognize this immediately. Belief is strongest when it sounds practical, when it solves a problem instead of raising one. Belief also needs proof, not logical proof, visible proof, something you can point to and say, it works. The jet becomes that proof. It moves faster, it avoids lines, it avoids waiting. It shows what belief can buy without saying the word buy. Hill would notice how belief protects itself here. Once belief delivers comfort, questioning starts to feel unnecessary. Once belief produces success, doubt starts to feel disloyal. People stop asking where the belief came from and start admiring where it arrived. Belief spreads this way, not through arguments, through outcomes. When people see belief turn into advantage, they want to believe more, not less. They want to stay aligned with results. Hill rarely asked who belief serves. He asked whether it works. And here, belief has clearly worked. The quieter question is never spoken. What does belief require in return? Not immediately, not loudly, but over time, until the next observation.